Welcome back, everybody, to another Growth Support Conversation. My name is Neil, and today I'm joined by Kateryna Shelest to talk about creating a quality program and everything that it can do for your team and how to really get started with it. Kate, do you want to talk about yourself and where you come from and your background?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Neil, for having me. So I'm Kate. I have 10 years of experience in customer support, maybe 1 year more. I have to do the calculations again. But yeah, I've built a few teams, like from scratch, worked in different industries, like e-commerce, outsource, gambling, and ended up creating my own company. And we provide service to enterprise mostly, just to help them to centralize support for their employees, because they're also their customers in a way. So creating a help center, like with knowledge base, ticketing system, helping them to automate and optimize everything that makes sense and makes everyone's life easier. And definitely like to structurize everything and make sure that service is high quality. So I like the topic of quality assurance.
Nice. And I think you're a support team's best friend, making their lives easier.
Yeah, most of the times. Yeah, need to keep the balance between like, how to say, implementing technology too much into their lives. Change management here is an important part as well, just to do it as smooth as possible, because I can get overexcited about opportunities, and I need to keep in mind that we're doing it for people. People need time. It has to be like step by step. So it actually helps and not frustrates and overwhelms people. That, yeah, there's empathy there.
I mean, the same could be said for, what we're going to talk about today, which is getting started with quality, or like really sure that people understand the changes and what's going on. What got you into quality, and why do you like to talk about it?
Oh, that's a good question. What got me into it? I saw your post, and that reminded me like about KPIs, and that reminded me like so many times leadership just like, we have to keep this customer satisfaction like numbers high. They don't know where it comes from, and that there's so much into it that you actually there's also internal quality score, and you need to present those together. And like, anyway, so that's where it came from. And it's amazing tool to help to set the standards, like for the team, for the company, to provide better service to the customer, and also to help the team grow and just I don't know how to say, see all the progress, because you have the numbers, so you can see how that goes. And I just like analyzing things and making them better. I cannot help myself.
I think it's like what you mentioned. We want to keep CSAT really high. We want to make sure that everything is going really well. But customer satisfaction in some cases doesn't really paint the full picture of how things are going internally and how things can.
Well, it doesn't exactly. And I always like to go through those negative ratings manually, or you have a tool and you can automate a bit of it. But the point is that not every negative rating is actually the support team's fault. Sometimes it's the situation itself. Sometimes it's just the customer frustrated. There can be some company policy that they're not happy with, like some updates. So it's really important as well to categorize those negative ratings, because it's not only support team that has to work on something, but feedback about the product, the process, and overall like satisfaction of the client with the company. So at some point I realized that I have to do it. So there is more data and also less frustration from the support team, because they are usually put to a lot of pressure. they represent the company, and typically there's a lot of volume, especially if the company is selling some product or software, and there are also these seasons like Black Friday that was recently. So it's chaos, and they're already under a lot of pressure and need to. That's also another tool to show them that you value them and you understand that there is much more to it. It's not only support team who is responsible for everything. Yeah, so it's very complex, and I like the depth of it. And actually, in one of the projects, it helped me to show the leadership team that the problem they had with satisfaction score was not that much on support team, and also, yeah, help to identify the actual issues that were there and fill the gaps. So, and help the team to feel more valued, because like, okay, guys, these are not on you, but here we can work on something. So let's do it together. And that worked much better than just like, oh, the customer satisfaction dropped. Support team is doing bad job. And you're just like, well, so yeah. I
So
like
you mentioned,
to really dig into things and get to the core of issues, and that's actually one of our core values in Katico. We worked on those really well to make sure that it represents who we are. And yeah, everyone who knows me can tell that I always get to the core. Um, yeah.
so you mentioned that you used a quality program and IQS to really build a little bit more comprehensive and in-depth picture of some of your teams in the past to show leadership like, hey, this is really the problem area that's
Mhm.
going on and happening, and it's not necessarily a direct correlation to satisfaction in the team themselves.
Yeah.
Can you share that experience? How did you get started with that process and kind of build that program up?
Okay, sure. Let me get into my memory. That was really interesting project. The company, they hired a head of support from outside of the company because they had like satisfaction score like below 80. It was like 74 or 5. So it was really low. And they thought, okay, the team cannot handle it. We need someone from outside. And fun part of the story, it's actually a Turkish speaking support team. I don't speak Turkish, but I was thrilled by the challenge. And I'm like, this is about the process. Like, we can speak English, we can speak like other shared language, and I can use the translator. It's all about to figure out what the problem is, identify the issue or issues, and just have a plan and work with the team to make it better. So I got the job, and it was fun and challenging. And I just started working with supervisors because they are in the field as well, and they're leaders, so they know what's going on. So I started collecting the data, like what actually support team does. Not only they were doing chats mostly, and actually calls, emails were there too, but like they were doing a lot of things apart from the chats. And also we need to consider industry. In that case, it was gambling. People who gamble, they're impatient, and like I have experience with that. I think I worked maybe like in 4 companies connected to gambling, so I know the industry. I understand the frustration, and it can be with different things, with policies, with bonuses that they want, and everything. So it's not, if the support agent communicated like within the structure and policies of the company, and so it most likely not team member fault that the customer is not satisfied. So we need to look exactly. So one of the first thing I was like doing was checking those negative ratings like more deeply. And also I implemented this quality assurance program. There was really nice tool that I found, and together with one of the supervisors, we just set the test group of agents to showcase that it actually can help. So we set up the criteria and just randomly evaluated chats. I think it was 6 or 8 people on the team, and there were like 20, just to show like what it can bring to the team and to the company. And yeah, mostly they were doing a great job. There were just a few things I recommended, and it was easy tool just to chat about it and for team members to respond to it and like maybe argue a bit, like, I think I did great here. So because other perspective of team members is important too. All those scores, like the criteria that don't have to come from leadership, like this is how you have to do your work. I noticed through years that it's important to include the team in discussion, because I, as a leader and expert in customer support, I know some of the standards that has to be there, but they know the company, they know the clients, so I have to trust them as well. So it was really nice teamwork to build up something together and just follow it and see the results. So once I started sending reports to leadership, they were just like, oh, okay, and they had no issues anymore, like, we're good.
Nice.
The team just maintained doing this. So I guess in their case, it was just lack of data. They were just relying on this one metric, and that's it. So once we broke it down into few things that actually, like, for them to have a bigger picture, and leadership likes big pictures. So once they saw it, and they're like, okay, now we get it, thank you. And that was it. And so it was really nice experience.
Nice. I mean, there are a couple of things that you mentioned that are kind of the process of how to go about creating a quality program in that sense, which is one, really defining the criteria that you want to measure excellence with, getting the team involved. You also mentioned around team size and kind of who to get involved there first. At what point would you say, when you start defining those criteria, it's important to involve the team on versus just, hey, here's what we're looking for when you're defining excellence?
Well, that's a tough one. You should involve team on a certain level anyway, because then you will have less resistance. So like, if you're an expert who comes there and just with already with the knowledge of how things should be done, and you're bringing this to the team, you need to explain to them where things come from, and to have buy-in from them. If you are figuring things out together with them, which happened to me when I first time was doing it, I became head of support out of nowhere. It just, the job has to be done, and I just started doing it, and they're just like, okay, so you're head of support. And I'm like, okay. So we just, in that case, we figured out ourselves, because what builds the criteria is, well, the easy way to start with what criteria should be there. You already mentioned the values of the company, like the goals. So that should be in mind, of course. And there has to be just three things: structure, content, and empathy. So you already can go through the process you use to handle any case, whether it's email, chat, phone call, like the steps you're taking and what is important at each step, like to make sure that, yeah, this is done or the way it has to be. So this helps you to figure out the criteria for the, like, SLA, it also part of the process, and it depends on the channel. Like it was, oh, I once heard someone bragging about, like, oh, we reply to emails within 10 minutes, and I'm like, oh my god, what kind of stress is there for the team? Like what quality of the reply it is, because you need time. If it's an email and people can write these long paragraphs, with emails you have time to analyze. So there's different SLA. Like, to my opinion, with email it's like 1 hour, with chats it's 1 minute, and with calls it's like few seconds that you have to take it into work. And then it comes like how you analyze do you understand fully the case? Did you ask proper questions? And for me, what's important, didn't you ask the unnecessary questions? Like, if you can check it yourself, you shouldn't ask customer anything of that, because it's frustrating. So those kind of things. And of course, this, what company does, the culture, like the product itself, it also puts some something into it, like kind of part of the brand, some things you should do or say, depending on the company you work for. So this is part of the structure, and the content is based on the policies or the product, so how well you know what's going on and what options are for the client. And of course, without empathy, it will be ruined, I think, because people, well, when I receive those robotic messages, even if the content is correct, I'm just like, do you even care if I'm human? Are you a human? So it is important that
Definitely.
you show empathy, and if there's frustration, you address it in a proper manner. So these things should be on training, because I know that support reps struggle sometimes when they should show empathy, how they should show it. Do they have to apologize? When? Like this. So I guess those three are important criteria, like structure, content, and empathy. And then you just put your context on top of it. And it can be as easy as like, okay, we have these three things and 5 points for each, and do the like this, I don't know, even in spreadsheets, the formula and so on. Or you can go, in one of the teams, we had like 100 points scale, and we had few questions, and you just, so, and for each of those there were certain points, so you just like check the boxes, and then there was this rating in the end, so it was fun.
Nice. I think especially when you talk about like these kind of criteria around the content and things like that, I think a lot of people talk about conversation review of just like, how are you having the actual conversation and the interaction? I think there's also a lot of things outside of that that maybe people don't necessarily think of. Are you following the correct policy? Are you actually executing the process correctly? You have, very, very small and tiny practical things of, you have grammar mistakes, and is it correct? Is it on company voice and tone? Like there's this huge list of criteria you could use. Should you use all of them? Probably not.
Well, that's a lot. If you need to start with something, yeah, it might be smaller. And once you, again, it depends on also level of the team, and like you said, the number of team members, I guess, only indicates like when you should start doing this like more precisely. Like if there are only 2 agents, you might just not, like it's a
What
lot
would be
of
that
effort.
breaking point for you?
Let me see. I think with 4, I would already do that. Because, yeah, well, I would do that with 2 even, but I just need to understand that if that makes sense, because there's a lot of effort put into it, and like, and also I have so much experience. If I have 2, like 3 agents, I don't need this. I already can like scroll through things and figure out, okay, here is what we need to discuss, and here it was good. So that also, I think, matters. But I like structure, I like charts, so
Yeah,
yeah.
you don't want
I
to
think,
over engineer the process at the same
yeah,
time of like, oh, we're doing this like really structured quality program, when basic conversation review will also just do the job if you're at that small of an agent pool. And
of course, yeah, you need to think about, as a leader, you also need to think about the um and like efficiency, like for the company, like does it make sense for the company to allocate resources now, or there has to be a certain trigger to start doing this, so it's not too late but not too early. Because I saw this happening to companies when they set up all the cool processes right from the start, and there is nothing to like, there is no material to work on, so you're just like, have put effort, money into it, maybe hired more people, and and then that's it. So yeah, I think 4 is a good number to start with, because there is already something, and it also means like the volume of the requests in different channels grows, because if there's not much volume, you can almost check every single interaction together. And anyway,
yeah, I mean, I've tried to roll out a quality program, or like at least really start a structured process like 3-4 times over the last couple of years. And I'm just like, I start it and I'm like, well, it's not really the right time for it. I don't want it's always something that's like, when will be that changing point of like, okay, we really need to kind of start ingraining that kind of alignment of process, because as you start to grow your teams and you start to get larger and larger, everyone will have their own style, they'll have different knowledge, they'll approach things in a different way, and having some structure in place helps you to kind of keep those I would say that the guardrails in place of making sure that everybody's talking the same way. We actually address and create a unified customer experience, so that one rep's not telling one thing and another rep's saying
Yeah.
a different thing, and trying to keep it aligned. I think one question I would have is, what's that balance between being able to have that personal flair and style versus that standardized response that you would look for kind of in a quality program when you start it? You don't
Hmm.
want people to get boxed into being a robot.
True, true. Yeah, I always like when people stand out and make interesting decisions. Like when you give them enough freedom to be able to find solutions on their own, but also respect the rules. So yeah, that's a tough question. Let me think. Because yeah, we had that, like everybody. I also, when you were talking, I thought, yeah, everybody has their own style, so you don't want to kill that. Well, in my case, most important thing is to um, don't ask the client questions if you can find information yourself. Double check all the policies and updates before you give your answer, to make sure that, I don't know, maybe you were on vacation, you didn't read all the updates, or maybe someone, messed up, didn't inform us about something on time, it was somewhere lost. I don't know, it can be anything, but it's important to not ask extra questions that when you can check the information, and actually check the information before you reply. And be a human, and just understand that people are like, you are in support. So, and people can have a really bad day coming there, and I'm really tough customer, so I know what can be what pressure can be put on support. So just be really care about people. So those three things, because then it's just a matter of details. Of course, SLA, but I don't know if something, especially when in SaaS companies, something. So there was update, something broke, and there is tons of emails and chats, and like might not actually be within SLA in such situations. So it's questionable. It has to be followed, but I wouldn't be like, oh, you. It's like, you're always 2 minutes late, kind of this. So yeah, I hope I answered your question. I just like
Yeah,
to talk about this.
no, it's fine. I think one of the biggest things is that, people don't get boxed into this. It's not I would think that the goal of quality is not to be bureaucratic. It is to really just make sure that it is a unified process, that we can make sure that we do speak the same language to our customers, to make sure that they have confidence, have a great experience, and we can measure across that and also show the organization that we're providing that experience in a standard but enjoyable and great way for customers. It's not
True.
a bureaucratic process just to do performance management and cut people out in that sense. It's for growth, it's for coaching, it's for being able to actually measure the success of our teams in a more comprehensive way than CSAT by itself as a standalone. And
True.
from that standpoint, I mean, there are only a few things that I look for in conversation review. I don't have a full quality program launched in such a structured way at the
Yeah, I
moment.
was about to ask what your approach right now. So yeah.
Yeah, so we do conversation review in a much more just coaching oriented, a very light way, because one, our team is quite small. I have 3 agents. I have not a high volume where not being able to see, like, my team will be surprised that I still remember like a customer from a ticket that I did a few days ago, like, oh yeah, that's so and so customer. They're like, how do you remember that? So like it's not really such a high volume to where we need to really aggregate it in that way.
Mhm.
But being able to just pull a couple of conversations, review and see what's going on. Typically, I think we use the standard 5 conversations per rep per week as the pretty standard conversation for that. And I look for a couple of things when it comes to communication. Is it empathetic? Is it clear? Is it concise? Is it confident? We want to build confidence with our customers that the customers will believe that we are confidently taking care of the problem.
Yeah, that's actually
Um,
a good point. Yeah. So because if they hesitate, the agent hesitate, it's just like, can I have another agent? Or like, so the customer might be questioning a lot of things. So you are right. That's a very good point about being confident.
and then the last thing that I look for is perspective. One of the things that I did in retail, this is going to be super specific and super weird, but
I'm ready.
when I was in retail running some cell phone kiosks,
Mhm.
we had a layout of a kiosk which was uh, sales rep on the inside of the kiosk, cell phones around them, and that was it. So customers would walk up, it would be like a desk, they could look around, but the salesperson would be on the inside. Um, and what ended up happening is it was very transactional. It wasn't a very like conversation. It was, hey, I want this thing, you give me that thing, I'm ordering it, and that was over.
Mhm.
Um, Later, we changed the layout. Well, the organization changed the layout where there was no one on the inside. It was storage. It was a block. Everybody was on the outside. And what ended up happening is that you had a salesperson looking at the phones and things together, side by side next to the customer, instead of against you, looking at the same thing and working on it together, kind of
Hmm.
solutioning. I try and bring that kind of perspective into how I look at things today, where
Mhm.
it's not us versus the customer. We're not passing blame. It's not their responsibility or our responsibility, but we are working towards a solution together. It's us and the customer looking at it in terms of how can we go through this together and kind of creating that perspective rather than passing any sort of blame or, oh, it's their fault or my fault or they needed to do this. So I know it's a very conceptual thing. Like in practice of coaching, it becomes clear the more examples that you give.
Yeah, true.
But yeah,
True.
perspective is an important thing for me.
Yeah, that's massive actually, because really when customer feels that uh you're basically like virtually taking their hand and like, okay, let's go and see together what we can do here. And like that helps, because there can be different situations, people can be lost, because cases when I contact support is that, well, I'm completely lost and I'm like, I need help. So they just, okay, let me take your hand and let's walk. That's how I imagined when you were talking about it. I'm like, yeah, that's super important. That's why it's support. And we
Indeed.
like once someone, I don't remember who actually, but at some point, oh yeah, one of our managers in outsource called us happiness heroes support team, and I loved it so much that my team always signs, like the signature is like happiness hero, apart from the name and everything. And we have in one of our projects we have very cute customer. She from time to time, just when she leaves feedback, she's just like, oh, how can I become happiness hero? You're so amazing. And we're like, oh, that's so nice. So she always remembers us. She just gives us a lot of compliments and always tries to figure out like, so how can I become one? So that's also part of that. mm, I don't know. I wanted to say image, but it's more deep, like the
It's,
concept of support, like what feelings you give people when they interact with you creates this relationship with the customer and helps retention very
I
much.
mean, we're going to dive into a different topic there, but I mean, that is essentially like frontline support is the face of your organization,
Yeah,
creating those relationships and building that.
exactly.
So in that sense, like quality does play a big role in how your customers feel and interact with your organization. and how they actually start to connect with that. So being able to show the organization, hey, we're doing, this is the standard of level of excellence that we have, that we deliver to our customers, and this is how we're doing on that, can go a really long way towards supporting that.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you so much. I do have one last question for you. It's always the last question of the conversations that I have before we
Yeah,
wrap.
and then 3 hours later.
And yeah, it's true. It's true. Conversations can go on for a long time because it's such interesting topics that like you can, and they're so nuanced as well that you could dive into such tiny details about very specific things.
Exactly.
Regardless of quality, support, anything, outside of that, just in your professional career or time, is there one thing that you've learned that you still really stick to today?
What a tough question, and very conceptual and philosophical one. I guess, yeah, there is one. It's my leadership style, because I started from the point of just being office manager and still believe that accidentally becoming head of support, and I was looking at my leaders and like doing how they're doing, and still in the process was trying to find my own way. Like, so once I figured out what that is, I stick to it. And because I'm a leader who serves the team, who creates this nourishing environment for people to grow, and without this blaming and everything, I'm very understanding. And I don't know, and I used to work with younger people, like usually students go to support in the first place. So anyway, I think once I figured out my style and saw those first results of people trusting me and each other, and like how I could create this amazing environment, I'm like, that's it. And that's what I'm doing now. And yeah, that's the most important thing for sure.
Nice. I mean, it's going to impact not only how you interact with people, but also your teams and lots of people along the long-term side of that as well. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for question. That was like something to think about. Like, when you don't have answer right when you're just like, So that I like those tough questions.
Those are always good ones.
Yeah.
Thank you for the conversation. I really appreciate it. If people want to continue that or ask you some more questions and find out, is there a place where they can reach you?
Of course. Well, my LinkedIn page is easy one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. It was a pleasure.